step back, puts up the three, got hit, shot's good, and one! James Harden double team, and a chance for a 4-point play.
Alrighty, welcome back to the DC pod. I'm Christian, joined as always to cover all things basketball, Dallas diehard Darcy. It makes sense, Darcy, to start off with your Mavs because on the last few days of the regular season, the team you now face in the first round decided to tank in the Clippers to match up with you guys and ultimately avoid that Lakers-Phoenix side of the bracket. How do you feel going into basically a rematch of what happened in the bubble?
I feel great. If you can, those of us watching on YouTube can see I've got all Dallas stuff here in the background. This is winning time. This is when you can only follow one team all the way to the championship. And although no one's picking us to make any real noise in this playoffs, I think we're a bit of a dark horse in the Western Conference to make some big noise. I was happy with matching up against Denver. I thought we definitely would have handled them. The Clippers is probably another step up. That's a tougher matchup, but I'm looking forward to it. And for me, I like being the underdog in this scenario because if the Clippers lose to us, then shit's gonna hit the fan in LA. But Dallas, we're just gonna root hard and try to see this team do something this season. One thing I'll mention is last time that the Mavericks were this high of a seed, a fifth seed, was 2011, and we all know what happened in the end of that season.
Yes.
We were able to hold up the banner. So it was a good regular season for the boys. I don't know if I could have predicted at the beginning of the season that we'd end up in the fifth spot, but I'm pretty happy and confident at the moment.
Yeah, well, look, I do actually like the Clippers' chances this year, but after seeing what they did the last couple of days, I think karma gods are going to come back to bite them. I understand it, obviously, tactically, but I don't like it. I don't like when teams, if anyone watched, I think it was 2 days ago, they played Houston and Zubac and Morris each played 5 minutes or 7 minutes. And then basically Ty Lue just sat him for the rest of the game and they've no injury. They're all healthy. So clear tank there to lose to a Houston team that's half their roster other than Kelly Olynyk is made up of guys on 10-day contracts. So they really didn't have a team. And then today was about as blatant as it gets to lose to an OKC team that's trying to lose as well. So I think they've only won 2 games in the past 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah. Did you see my boy Moses? The line from my boy
that was
Moses
ridiculous.
Brown?
Yeah. So what did he have? 18, 12, and 7 blocks or something.
Oh my! Over 20 points, 18 rebounds, and 7 blocks. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, ridiculous stat to finish it off. Yeah. So the main thing that stood out for me today, Das, was, geez, I don't know about this Memphis team, but I think it's stuff we're not totally surprised about. Coming up against the Golden State team, it was like, look, or a team in general heading into the playoffs, we sort of thought if you just clog up the paint, restrict Ja from being able to get wherever he wants, then who's their secondary option to play make from the perimeter? We know they've got Valanciunas and he ate today against Golden State, but that didn't matter.
Awesome.
So that's kind of what stuck out to me out of all the important games. Just the fact that, that strategy, what we thought would happen coming up against teams did, and you saw the result. Like, I know Steph did his thing, but I don't think Steph was that impressive. Like, he had 30 points in the second half. He got off to a really slow start and Memphis didn't take full advantage of that. So it is worrying for a Memphis team coming in against, and I get it's the Spurs, and we'll discuss that matchup for the 9v10 playing in the West, but in a single game, anything can happen, as we know. So, the Spurs have given your Mavs trouble over the past season. In particular, I mean, what was it, the DeRozan game winner a few months back? Yeah. So anything stupid can happen. So it is worrying that, Memphis were pretty beaten for the most part, quite convincingly. And if not for the guy I slander the most, Dylan Brooks, it could have been a blowout. So that's really what stood out to me today.
He was almost a match winner and a match coster in the same breath because he got himself fouled out at the crucial moment as well. So he did a great job kind of making Steph be a little bit inefficient. But I guess something that's really intriguing about Curry in these playing games is he's going to take his volume of shooting to another level. 22 3-pointers he put up today in one game. Like if you just take a peep at the line, like, oh, he got 45. He must have shot really well and made all his threes. No, he didn't actually make that many of his threes today. He was just determined to do whatever it took to carry them offensively. And that's exactly what it's going to take for them to beat the Lakers and or the winner of Memphis and San Antonio. You're right. We've talked about Memphis many times on this pod because they're an interesting team. They've got those big cloud of doubt is still there on them. And Valanciunas is one of the most consistent. But then when it comes down to it, it's all about can Ja keep the defense honest with his 3-point shooting. He's going to have to knock some down if they're going to win these elimination games. It's a really good test for Memphis because they had a taste of this last season in single game elimination. So, they're a team who's actually been in this situation before, which not really any other team can say. So look for them to come out strong in their matchup. And we'll preview it soon. But yeah, interesting signs today. I think the Warriors, they went really hard to win that one today, and credit to them, they got it done.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned Steph taking 22 threes. You know who also took a ton of threes today? The Houston player, Armani Brooks. Armani. He attempted 18 today. He made 6.
How does he get that license to shoot coming from only playing, 15 games this season?
Yeah, he's barely played any.
If you could name their 12-man roster, I'd challenge anyone out there to name their 12-man roster from today. Like I think they've played 29 or 30 players this season. I think only Brooklyn's got anywhere in that range. Brooklyn's close to 28 players that they've put on the NBA court this season, which is so many. That's ridiculous. Close to 30 players. But it kind of makes a little bit of sense for Houston. But Brooklyn, it just shows, they're willing to try anyone as well. So 2 of the most jumbled rotations in the league this season.
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing I'll say about Houston before we get into previewing the play-ins, did you know Cam Oliver got picked up by him? I missed that. I thought he was still in the
nice flashes.
I thought he was still in the NBL, and now he's playing for Houston. How did that happen?
Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't on their kind of radar a little bit earlier. He had a monster season last year in the NBL, similar to Jay Sean Tate. They were both first team all NBL. So I assume that that teams had a look at, been thinking about Oliver as potential prospect. He really fits the athletic profile of the NBA. Like he's 6'8", and he's got a big wide chest, and he looks like he can defend, kind of the 5 position in the NBA with his size and his shot blocking. But he's also very quick up and down the court, so he's a good rim running forward. And when he's consistently hitting a 3-point shot, he looks like potentially a legitimate NBA player. I kind of I thought Jay Sean Tate was capable of potentially playing in the NBA, but he's really shown me that, he belongs for sure. Like he looks like a legit player right now already. So who's to say that those kind of similar guys who can thrive in the NBL that fit that athletic profile can actually do it in the NBA? And it does make it interesting to see what happens with the next star's Josh Giddey from Adelaide 36ers, and how high can he rise in that draft, and what big impact can he have? It's exciting for the NBL and for Australian basketball fans like us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Sydney Kings Brazilian, Lazada got picked up. He went back to the Pels. Yeah, signed by the Pels. So I think he's had some spot minutes here and there to finish out the season. I think he played a little bit against your Mavs and potentially got a bit of game time. Not that I watched, but today against the Lakers, I can only assume he played some minutes. So look, it's good. The more NBL to NBA sort of transitions we have, just brings more credibility to the league, helps us get better players, and we can really start to have a really dominant league that can be spoken about, similar to how they sort of speak about the Euro League, for example. And it seems to be NBA, Euro League, and then NBL in that order. But the more and more we have these success stories, I think it can really start to push us up there, because I remember just how things have transitioned. I can't think of a really good player who was the first to make their way down. Was it like someone like Childress or Al Harrington, or someone from an NBA background? Those are the ones that ring the bell for me. But the last few years, obviously getting the young guys and not getting the guys at the tail end of their career coming over, it's really given a nice boost. And it's forced, scouts to start to look outside the box and not just think Europe or not just think, in North America. So it's really exciting. And I'm very keen to see how Giddy fares in this draft process. I'm not sure if there's a draft combine this year. But even if I don't think he'd be that involved in it anyway. A lot of those top 10 picks make sure they, stay unknown, don't give away too much. Sort of what's a good example of, the Dante Exum is, that really helped. There wasn't much known about him, and sort of who knows if you were able to see a bit more of him, he might not have gone, fourth to Utah or whatever it was, fifth. So, Giddy does have at least the credibility, because people can look and go, well, look, LaMelo Ball was, out of this sort of league last year, and he was putting up the triple doubles, and Giddy's doing it, but in a more efficient way this season. And he's, is he the same age as LaMelo? 18?
Yeah. Yep. Same age.
So
and he's leading the league in assists. Giddy has just been released by Adelaide to do his pre-draft kind of work.
Oh, really?
So he's not going to be playing for the rest of the NBL season. He's going to be focusing, whether that's combine or not, we're not sure. But
gotcha.
Yeah, he's leading up to it right now. So interesting times. It'll be interesting to see if he plays any part in the squad for the Boomers at the Olympics as well, because that's another way for Australian basketball to really get stamped in
great point.
Across the world as one of the best ones, is to potentially come away with that elusive medal in the Olympics. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Hopefully that goes ahead. Yeah,
well, that's awesome. The fact that we can finish off the NBA season, not have too much of a break before we get some more high quality basketball, and then it leads into the next NBA season. So, for you hoop fans, it seems to be a pretty good time of year, that's for sure. Okay, regular season is done. Thank goodness. No longer have to sit through
72
games and all of that. Gosh. Can actually get to the business end. So the play-in kicks off on Wednesday, Australian time. I think the first game is Charlotte, Indiana at 8 a.m. and then Washington, Boston at 11 a.m. So Charlotte had obviously slipped the last week to 10 days so much that they fell to the 10th seed. So they slipped all the way to 10th.
A home game.
So it's really, as you say, it's rough. It's unfortunate. They now face a Pacers team. And I guess my first question that I'll start it off with, Das, is who's even going to be healthy for Indiana? Because Levert left today with an injury. We don't know what's happening with Brogdon. Turner is definitely out. I'm pretty sure he's confirmed as out for the season. They've got Lamb, who's been injured. Their injury list seems to be insane. I don't think Hayward's going to be back for Charlotte. That feels like it's a bit too soon. Does Indiana even have... Well, I actually really like Charlotte. I know a lot of people think this is probably the Pacers game to take, and the betting odds reflect that. I think the early odds are something like Indiana $1.60 to Charlotte $2.20. So far, that's what the sort of, Vegas thinks. How do you sort of sit on this game in particular? Because I'll just say, I think both teams suck, but I like Charlotte because they suck less. So that's my stance.
I think these two teams, they're completely different paths, I guess. Charlotte have been overachieving for a lot of the season, and a lot of that consistent play that they had was with Hayward. To see them now in this position, like they've been hanging around inside the playoff picture for their wins and losses for, it feels like, 2 months. They've just been hanging around, but it's really come to bite them in the last week with 5 straight losses, their worst losing streak of the season, and they've only just been able to get LaMelo a few games in a row. So when it comes down to what lineup you're going to see without Gordon Hayward, they're still very, very thin. Their number one option is Rozier, and we know how good he's been this season, and he's a clutch player. So I would look for him to potentially be the best player on the court in this game. But you also look over to, since returning from injury, Sabonis has been, the most dominant player in the league statistically. Like, he is completely destroying teams on the interior, putting up over 25 points, over 12 rebounds a game, and dishing out heaps of assists. So that'll be interesting because Charlotte, their front line, it was already quite weak to start the season, but without Hayward really being that, that concrete, that rock in the small forward position, now you're relying on a lot of PJ Washington. You need a lot out of Miles Bridges, who we've spoken about has been really solid this season. But can he get it done in a playoff scenario, a play-in scenario? He's been out for the last week or two. He just came back in this game today as well, so we hope that he's good to go. Once you get outside of those two, which aren't that tall, you're seeing a lot of Cody Zeller and Biyombo. And I think if I'm Sabonis, I'm licking my lips at that, thinking I'm going to be able to go to work all game long on that matchup. So I would lean towards Indiana just because I think they've got the biggest advantage on their strongest player. X factor is definitely LaMelo Ball. If LaMelo, can captivate his team and the fans, obviously them not being at home is a bit disappointing because they've been one of the funnest teams to watch when playing at Charlotte just because of their commentators, and they just haven't been a relevant team in a long time. I feel like Indiana are kind of on the opposite end where it's all kind of fallen apart a little bit. There's unrest between the coach and the players and the coaching staff. That there's been reports of them not getting along very well and everyone not happy with their role, and a lot of that happens with just the fact that they've been losing and they're missing two critical players. Like Turner's been huge for them this year, and since they lost him, it's been obvious that they're defensively struggling big time. And Brogdon, both of us, we really like him and his poise in clutch situations. He's been good in the playoffs previously, so if he does play, that's a huge boost for Indiana, definitely. But he hasn't been anywhere near the court really in the last 3 weeks, so it would be a lot for him to come up for just one game and kill that. But for me, I'll go with the safe bet and go for Indiana. I hope Charlotte do something great, and I hope LaMelo Ball has a really big impact on this game. But I think Sabonis is the deciding factor in this one.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you look at these playing games and you think, when it's, single elimination or potentially a second chance if you're a 7 or 8 seed, you do kind of, I imagine that these games are going to be playoff-like. Hard to get a basket. Refs will swallow their whistle. They want to let, basically the guys play. So when it's that type of situation, I think Charlotte have more guys that can get a bucket out of nothing. I really do. And a lot of shooting. And I think they match up with Indiana really well. And I think they could even withstand if they say, look, Sabonis is going to feast, but we're not going to let him play make. He can score and rebound, but we're not going to let him assist and really run the show. If they can do that, I think they're in with a really good shot because then they just have too many guys themselves. I mean, you mentioned a lot of them, but a couple of guys I think you didn't mention for Charlotte is Devontae Graham's back. He's at least a guy that can, at least hold the fort and definitely get hot from deep. Absolutely. And then you also have Malik Monk can get hot from deep as well in a single elimination game. Who knows what you get from him? Could you get 20 points and, 4 threes and some highlight plays? And he could really spark him. And then, of course, the obvious one you said was LaMelo. I know he's sort of been very on and off with his shooting since being back. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk that he's been rushed back from his wrist and he's not 100%. And that wouldn't surprise me. But, I mean, a lot of guys aren't 100% this year anyway. They've just played a grueling 72-game schedule. And, no one's going to be healthy. Everyone's dealing with something.
He's young. He'll be right.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think in a one game sort of scenario, I lean towards the team that have more guys that can get hot. And gosh, I actually hope LeVert plays. I'm not sure exactly what his injury was, but yeah, it was basically a must win for the Pacers today. And he only played 20 something minutes, if that. So exited the game with some sort of injury. So again, hopefully he's back to make it some sort of contest. Cause I think if Brogdon and LeVert are out and it's just Sabonis, well, now that's looking a bit grim for the Pacers. But how
you
much
needed 20 assists from McConnell?
Oh, geez, won't you? My kind of question here as well is to sort of further off what I was saying with these games sort of being, very playoff-like and tough to get buckets. But neither of these two teams have played defense at all this season. And maybe the Pacers are harsh on the Pacers until Turner got injured. But since Turner got injured, defense is an afterthought for the Pacers. They just play run and gun, and their games are in the 270s total range. They put out 140 themselves and win by 10, or it's a close one. So I actually have no idea how to read the style of how this game will go. What if it's just a shootout and it's who can make more?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You definitely speak about some of the shooting that Charlotte has, and they play a very spread out game, and they do shoot a lot of threes. They rely a lot on their point guards to create shots for their wings. And I think Indiana, when they're at their best, they do the same with guys like Doug McDermott and Justin Holiday. If they're able to get a dozen each, then they become, a tough team to beat. But if they're not able to get anything, if the well is dry for those 3-point shooters, then it all kind of comes down to, can Sabonis carry us the whole way? I think it'll be a dogged game, because Charlotte, they've lost 5 in a row. You might say they're due, to go off and have a big game and shoot the ball really, really well. But on the other hand, if it does become a half-court game, a grinded-out game, the only kind of guy who from Charlotte who I think is too hard to stay in front of would be Rozier. He's a guy who can get into the paint and can be a mismatch for anyone. It'll be an interesting game. That'll want to be a fun one to watch. Like you said, this team's not playing a lot of defense lately, so be a lot of scoring hopefully. And the East is wide open. It's, if we transition over to the 7th and 8th game, whoever loses that game, they won't want to see the winner of the 9th, 10th. I think it'll be a little bit different in the West. Whoever loses the 7th, 8th in the West will be thinking, yeah, we got this. Yep. In the East, it feels like, Charlotte, they were ahead of Boston basically the whole season in record. They might not be now, but they've been as good as Boston all season long. And I don't think you can debate that, even with Washington as well.
Yeah, 100%. Everything you say is spot on there. And now that we go into sort of that 7-8. So for the record, I've got Charlotte and Darcy has the Pacers. But obviously that's assuming that LeVert plays. I think you'd probably switch your pick if you find out both LeVert and Brogdon are out.
Maybe I've got some hard in TJ. Maybe TJ is a big time player.
Okay. All right. So he's going to stick with it. Put his faith in Dougie McBuckets and TJ McConnell to get it done. And his boy O'Shea Brissett as well, that you mentioned before, and you've taken as a lock.
Had a 30-piece.
Yes.
30-piece today with 5 threes. He's hot.
That's very impressive. So Washington, Boston, man. I sort of look at this game and go, nah, Boston are just so tragic that they've been so bad, especially the second half of the season. Time Lord's been out recently. Tristan Thompson's been out recently. Not that Washington have, a lot of good big men, but I mean, Gafford's been great for him since coming across from the Bulls. So he's at least someone they need to worry about. Robin Lopez off the bench. Do Boston need to play a bit of taco just to have some sort of big man out there? Otherwise, because if you watched a bit of today's game between Charlotte and the Wizards, Robin Lopez cooked Charlotte's second unit. He had a great game off the bench. So he's definitely someone to worry about. The old reliable sky hook that he loves going to. So it's tough to defend. But yeah, I think I have to go with Washington. I mean, how do you bet against Russ and pick against him when he's just a psycho and in some sort of mood to, basically, if you remember how shit they were to start the season, and something clicked in February, March.
It was all his fault.
He just refused to go down after the horrendous start to the season. So, the way he's been tracking, and you can say, he's just a numbers guy and a stats guy. But I heard somewhere today that, what was it? In 75% of the wins that Russ has, he's got a triple-double. It's something like that. Something that correlates that it's not actually just a numbers thing. Like he's not just getting triple doubles and the team's losing. I think the one season you could probably say he was just stats hunting was, the season in OKC there where it was without KD and Harden had already left.
Harden,
so it was without KD and Harden before they had gotten who did they get? Was it PG?
Paul George.
Yeah, it was before they got Paul George, before they acquired him.
MVP season.
So that was his MVP. Correct. So
it's definitely true that, he's a winning player. Those triple doubles, like he doesn't just he might stat hunt at times, but when you look at the way that he dominates the game, it's hard to believe that, Kemba Walker and Marcus Smart are going to, define the tempo of the game and kind of control what happens. Feels like every time you watch Russ in these playoff scenarios, it's all on his terms, whether it's a bad shot or at the clutch moment, he makes a great decision and gets a steal, or he makes a bad decision and throws the ball away. It's all kind of up to him. Like, he's not going to put the game in anyone else's hands. He's going to take it for himself, and win or lose, he's going to leave it all out there on the floor. That's basically been his MO his whole career.
Did you see the Pacers game the Wizards played? I think it might have been a week, 10 days ago. Russ was about to take a terrible shot in overtime, I think it was, gets fouled, knocks down both free throws, and then gets a game-winning block. So for the Wizards to just get a huge win. So I think Scotty Brooks should be thanking Westbrook, a lot, because he was probably on the hot seat before they sort of took off here in this second half of the season. The other thing I think got to be worried about with just the Boston side is the other day against the Cavs was almost must win, and they somehow lose to the Cavs by, I don't think it was double digits, but they lost by 8 or 9. And it was just like, how? Everyone's been taking care of business against the Cavs, and they face Boston. They go, okay, this is a win. And I mentioned it before at the start as well, when speaking about, these other teams and tanking, and OKC getting the win against the tanking Clippers today. And OKC got a win, 2 or 3 weeks ago against a Boston team in Boston, right? And OKC have been trying to lose since the All-Star break. They told Al Horford go home. They told SGA you're injured, stay home. Even though I don't think Shea is injured, but that's fine. Dort has barely been playing. He's been in and out of the lineup. It's just it's hard to defend Boston and just say, oh, they've been unfortunate with injuries and whatnot. It's like, when times get tough, I think they hide. I don't think they're a team that can overcome adversity very well. I'm definitely not putting money on them to beat this Wizards team.
Yeah, I think you're right. Washington playing some of their best ball. Beal, he's had a bit of a scare with that hammy, but he looks like he's playing through it. So I don't really feel there's any way that they can stop this momentum, because the momentum's been pushed in the wrong way against Boston. It feels like the whole season. Yeah. And there's some bad losses, and now, we've seen a couple of the worst losses of the season for them. Just emotionally, like, they're out of it. Jalen's gone down. He's their number 2 guy. Kemba, he's been in and out of the lineup all season long. And I'm not going to bet that or expect that he's going to come out and all of a sudden be the best player on the floor and dominate and be an all-star. Like, I like Kemba, but I just don't think it's going to happen against Beal and Westbrook, who are just absolute dogs. Marcus Smart, he's the heart and soul of this team. He's the type of guy who I expect to come out and will, fight Westbrook, probably, like literally get into a fight with him to win the game. He's probably the only guy with the absolute ticker that's not going to let this Boston team go down. But when you just look top to bottom, they just don't have the talent, unless Tatum's able to go to, unworldly stuff from Tatum and go put up 60 again.
He might need to.
There's any way. Yeah, with no scoring in the front court, Fournier's basically been the definition of hit and miss since he arrived at their team. And who knows what you're going to get at Kemba in this game. So just way too many question marks for me or anyone in the right mind to pick Boston in this one. Dangerous guys for Washington as well. Like Ish Smith has been playing well lately, and Bertans is looking to find a bit of range. So in general, the momentum and all the kind of positive things are coming out of Washington, and they're not going well in Boston.
Yeah,
good pick on the unders for Boston for the season as well.
Yeah, no, it's just things. I can't exactly remember the reasoning coming into the season, but I just think the main issue was they just didn't like the Tristan Thompson pickup was okay, whatever, that's fine. But I just think they needed some more assurity in that front line. As good as Robert Williams has been, to say he could handle a big man, or it's a bit of a mess. I think they made a mistake by just letting Hayward go for a trade exception. I think if they had their time over again, they should have probably found a way to try and do the deal with the Pacers and try and get Turner back. And even if it required them giving up another piece or some sort of asset to sweeten the pot, I think Turner would be massive for this team. And I'd have a lot more confidence in him in, certain matchups. And especially this one against the Wizards, I'd feel much better about it because they have clear protection at the rim and, a pretty clear advantage. But it doesn't really matter that now that Washington, especially in this matchup, that their weakness is probably the big man spot. If you look at all their positions, if you just look at Boston, who could defend a guy like Hachimura? Like Washington have too many guys. What if Garrison Matthew gets hot and hits 2 or 3 threes? Like who does Boston have outside of, as you say, Kemba, Smart, Fournier, Tatum that could just give him a spark, give him anything? I don't know if Langford's doing anything. Yeah. I mean, Neesmith's been good, but he's a rookie.
Neesmith's probably the only guy. Yeah, he's probably the only guy playing well lately. Nothing from Grant Williams lately.
Nothing. Carson Edwards. What's
Brad
he doing?
Stevens as well. He's been known to in previous playoff seasons to really shorten that rotation. Like he doesn't trust those guys, and I bet you he won't put them on. Like he'll run Kemba and he'll run Smart into the ground if he has to, even if they're playing terribly. I think that's just the way that his subbing rotation does go. So, and I reckon that could hurt them because if they're not playing well, then this game could get away from them quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had a guy like Jeff Teague that they signed in the offseason, and then they quickly realized, well, this isn't going to work. So did they trade him to Milwaukee or buy him out? There was some sort of thing like that. Can't remember the exact reasoning, but yeah, as you say, they have no one behind Kemba and Smart. So I expect them to play, 40 minutes plus.
They need to pray for a good game from Fournier. I think that's probably their best bet. For him to get hot, give him 20 and then keep him in the game and hope Tatum can win it down the stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And even Chandler Hutchinson, he's been okay since coming across as well. I like him. He's just another athletic forward. Like there's no harm in having a guy like that out there.
If Westbrook has his way, he can just get all these guys involved. And yeah, there's so much good energy coming from them at the moment. It's tough to go by them in this pick.
Yeah, and if I don't think Washington will look ahead, but if you want to look ahead, I think Westbrook would really like to get that 7th seed and have a first round against Brooklyn and KD. Like, tell me he's not licking his lips going up against KD and Harden in that first round. Like, geez.
100%. He'd be viewing it as a 3-on-1, me against the world, time to drop 50.
Definitely. And if anyone had noticed throughout the regular season, Washington kind of match up okay with Brooklyn. I know it's a regular season and Brooklyn was still sort of figuring out their stuff with defense, but they beat him 2 out of 3 times, I'm pretty sure. So they beat him at home to start the season. Then they beat him in that crazy game in Washington where, Matthews intercepted it, threw it to Russ, he hit the 3. And then I think they lost the third game in Brooklyn. But still, there's something about that you couldn't rule out the Wizards. They would make a series of it. So, I'm pretty sure Brooklyn would be able to get by it. But, boy, it would be a tough one, that's for sure.
And Harden, his teammate from last year, who just, abandoned him, basically. So, yeah.
A lot of storylines in that matchup.
So many axes to grind. Westbrook his whole career. Hilarious.
Jeez. Okay. So that's so we both have Washington for that, yeah? Just to confirm.
For sure.
Okay.
Can't pick Boston. I'm sorry to my Boston fans out there. I just can't do it.
Yeah, no, I can't do it. All right, to the West. This is where things actually get pretty good. I'm really looking forward to even the Spurs Memphis one that will kick things off. So because Memphis lost today, they basically fall into 9th. The Spurs have been 10th for, gosh, I think it's been a lock that they would finish the 10th seed for the last, not week, but at least last few days. I think the Pels or Sacramento got knocked out of contention. It was one of those two teams. I think it was the Pels. Yeah,
the Pels and Sacramento finished on the same record. And
interesting.
They were only 2 games behind the Spurs. So they only had to get their act together just a little bit, the Pelicans, and they would have been in this play-in tournament. It's really been a failure season for them. We're not talking about teams that didn't make it, but it's been a failure season for them, big time.
Yeah. Do you think just the only tangent I'll take on that, on these Pels, do you think they just decided to mail in the season? Because how come suddenly Ingram was injured, Adams was injured, Zion was injured, just suddenly out of the blue? When it felt like they were pushing and going to make, one last run, did they look and go, oh, we're not going to catch the Spurs and just mail it in? Because it came out of nowhere, the Zion injury. I didn't see anything about that. They played the Golden State twice. They split that. And it was like, okay, maybe like, and then suddenly, a few games later, it was like all three of those guys dropped like flies.
Really bizarre. I think maybe they didn't want to get caught out in a playoff game. You think any playoff game, any playing game would be good reps for those guys, getting into in an elimination scenario. But the energy around that team, they look like they're ready for a change. I think there's going to be a big shake-up, whether it's trade one of their superstar players or get rid of the coach, because it just feels like it did feel like they gave up and they're ready to head in a different direction. So this season won't really matter in the context of the future of their franchise. So yeah.
Lonzo Ball restricted free agent this offseason as well. So interesting to see
for them.
Yep.
Huge move for them.
Okay, so Spurs Memphis. Where do you sit on this game?
Tough to say. I think throughout from the body of work I've seen during the season, I think Memphis will be a safe pick here.
Okay.
They're at home. They've got all their guys. Jaren Jackson has been actually put up a couple of decent games since he's been back. Only a couple of weeks, but he has performed when he's been out on the floor. He had a few 3-pointers. Spurs, they're a consistent team, but they're not a deep team. We know that we know who they go to down the stretch, and it's DeMar DeRozan 1, DeMar DeRozan 2, and DeMar DeRozan 3. He's their guy in the mid-range, getting jump shots off when it's close. So I think when the Spurs are at their best, they're getting something out of Podol in the middle, and they're getting some points from DeJounte Murray and Derek White. Is Derek White injured at the moment?
Good question. He is injured. I'm just not sure if he's going to be back for this game. Lonnie Walker's been starting a lot. That's
right, and Walker's been scoring the ball well because Derek White was shooting the 3-ball really well for a little stretch there, and
really well
about three quarters or so through the season. But they're going to need to rely, if he's out, they're going to need to rely on Murray. Murray's going to have to put up at least 20 points in this game. He's going to have to basically match Ja Morant for output points wise if he wants to get the Spurs over the hump in this one. And what the big strength about San Antonio outside of those guys in the starting lineup is, their 6, 7, 8 rotation, their 3-point shooting, their veterans off the bench. Rudy Gay needs to be able to get him a dozen. Patty Mills needs to be able to come in and hit a few threes. And they need probably one more guy to step up, in their rotation.
I don't know.
Vassell, I would like to see some minutes for him for sure. See if he knocks down a 3 or 2, then keep him out there. Obviously, if he's starting, it's a different story, but they need points out of Lonnie Walker. And DeRozan, I can almost guarantee DeRozan will get them 20 to 25 points, but will he be able to come through in the fourth quarter when the game's basically on the line? I'm sure he'll be able to get a good shot off, but his history is very, there's a lot more down than up with his clutch history in playoff games. He's been in a lot of playoff games. He's got a lot of experience, but I don't know how much you can rely on him to kind of bring you home in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. If his shot's not falling or he's a bit out of it mentally, then the Spurs might just collapse a little bit. But there's definitely a window here. It's not as clear cut as would you think. I'd expect this game to be very, very close. Even if Memphis do lead from start to finish, I don't feel like it's going to be a blowout at all. Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I actually fall more towards that this is a dangerous situation for Memphis. Anything can happen. Gosh, you mentioned a few names there, of guys that could get hot, be it a Rudy Gay, Patty Mills, Lonnie Walker. What if Keldon Johnson just gives them 20 as well and really chips in? I think the main thing there that you said that I really agree with is Pirtle is probably going to need to play 40 minutes. I don't trust Drew Eubanks to come in and give him reliable backup. I don't know how good Gorgie Jang's looked. I haven't really tuned into a lot of Spurs games since they acquired him. I don't think he's been that good, because if he was
revenge game.
Oh, geez, that's a stretch.
For Gorgie?
I mean, it's a good point. That's a great point. I forgot about that.
Be juiced.
Gorgie and Pop have been in the office going through how Memphis play for the past 4 days. That's a good point. I didn't think about the revenge game, but not from Gorgie. I mean, this could be
Val's been
famous
playing
last
so well.
words, but I don't think, Gorgie can give him too much. I think it's a case of Memphis having a bit too much. As much as I think, Memphis have a ceiling, given the type of guys they have. God, I was thinking about it watching the game. If Memphis had just one perimeter scorer, just any Lou Will, Jordan Clarkson type today, that they could have stolen that, because as Dylan Brooks was phenomenal, as we've spoken about, to bring him back. And when Brooks fouled out, it was either tied or they were down 2 when Brooks fouled out halfway through the fourth.
Right there.
And then Steph kind of took over down the stretch, and I thought Jar sucked today. He was awful.
He struggled.
They put Draymond on him, and Draymond does the Draymond stuff where he sort of gets in your head and he'll take one step out to the 3-point line, but he's never going to fully close out. So you second guess yourself, and then you drive to the rim, and Draymond's verticality and defense is smart, and he rarely gets his body in a wrong position. So Jar can't really use his athleticism or speed to trick Draymond, because if anything, Draymond's, the smartest defensive player out there. So he knows just about how to defend everyone, from a 6-foot guard to, a 7-footer like Embiid. Draymond has the tools of the trade to literally guard 125 or get as close to it as you can. So he made life so difficult on Jar. I think Jar does have a bounce back, but gosh, these single elimination games, Dust, they scare me, because all it takes is one person to get hot. That's all it takes, and it just swings momentum completely.
Morant hits his first couple of threes, and then the team starts to feel good about themselves. Maybe Kyle Anderson hits 1 or 2, and then Jaren Jackson comes on and hits 1, and then Memphis, they look like a good, strong offensive team. But on the other hand, DeJounte Murray has proved this season that he's a real tough defensive point guard. So that's going to be a hell of a matchup of young athletic point guards there in that one, and you expect that Valanciunas will be eating all night long, but if Podol can kind of hold his own and get a block here and there and a couple of rebounds and kind of just stay on the court without fouling, and then the tighter and tighter that this game gets, the pressure will potentially start to get to Memphis, because the Spurs, no one expects anything out of them in this season. Memphis, they're a team that has high expectations of themselves. They expect to be in the 8th seed, and they were knocked out of the play-in last year, so they really don't want it to happen again. But that's when the pressure, in the fourth quarter might just really, really seep in. I think I will go with Memphis to pick to win this game, but yeah, like you said, I'd be betting that it's very, very close, and it comes down to basically the last shot.
Yeah, and if look, I'm very reluctant to take Memphis, but I probably will take him in the end. I think they play much better as an underdog on the road. The record reflects that. Yeah. So kind of just the situation where they're at home, they're expected to win. Gosh, that plays perfectly into San Antonio's hands, because they're another team that have had a phenomenal year in terms of road records. So they just had it a second ago, accidentally exited out of the app.
19 and 17 on the road for the Spurs.
There you
20 and 16 on the road for Memphis. That's great.
Yeah, whereas Memphis are barely 500 at home, or they are 500 at home, and the Spurs are way under. They're 8 games under 500 at home. So it suits the Spurs to a T that they can go into Memphis and play the underdog role, and if there's any coach that could inspire his troops to really have just a hell of a one-game performance, it's probably Pop's a good shout. There has been a little bit of rivalry between these two teams in the past, of Spurs, Memphis, where it be, Conley and Gasol and Zebo up against, Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, the old days, even a little bit of Aldridge. These two teams have played each other in the playoffs, it feels like, more often than not. So
they're division rivals.
Yeah.
Memphis, they've been at the closet, kind of, they've been the underachievers of the conference. The Mavericks, Houston, and the Spurs obviously have that Texas blood in them, but Memphis, they're right part of that. And to me, that's by far and away the strongest conference in the league. Sorry, the strongest division in the league. I think those teams are consistently strong, and Memphis has shown that they're no easy out as well.
Yeah. So to sort of further the point, when Orlando have sort of been favorites, Memphis have been favorites. They lost to Orlando recently, obviously the Cole Anthony game winner. They then lost to the Pistons, who were tanking by 14 points only 10 days ago. So this is obviously, still very important time. I think any game in the month of May you should take serious, leading into this stretch period. And to lose by 14 to a Pistons team that had a starting lineup of Frank Jackson, Corey Joseph, Isaiah Stewart, Sekou Doumbouya, and Sadiq Bey. And Memphis had everyone. Memphis played everyone, and they lost by 14. So that stuff is hard to explain. I get sometimes you can just have an off night. There's a lot of games in the NBA, but again, it was May. It's an important time. Memphis would have been looking at the schedule and go, "Poor boy, maybe we can really pip, Golden State and sneak into that 8th spot." And so that to have that sort of mail-in performance, that's not good. That doesn't bode well. They were heavy favorites, expected to do the job against a team that was tanking. And there's 2 examples with Orlando and Detroit. So it does worry me a lot, but I think settling on Memphis is probably the smart play if you're looking at it from just a betting perspective or going with what you. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Spurs are a 10th seed for a reason, right? They're not very good, but yeah, it is worrying. I don't feel good about it at all. So yeah, probably have to settle on Memphis.
I'm down with that. If we move on to the other game, the juiciest game of them all in the play-in. This is why they created the play-in game.
Yes.
Can you believe it? The Lakers weren't a top 6 seed. I know they had injuries. I know that they had a little bit of COVID, and they obviously want to take it very, very relaxed with trying to bring back Davis early or bring back LeBron early. But they're in the 7th seed. Portland got ahead of them. Dallas got ahead of them. All 3 of those teams were even on wins, by the way, for you fans listening out there. Because of the 3-way head-to-head, the Mavericks grabbed that 5th seed, Portland grabbed the 6th seed, and then the Lakers fall into a 1-game play-in with the Warriors, which is very interesting because these are actually the 2 hottest teams in the league in the last 10 days.
Yes.
So the Warriors won 6 in a row now, and the Lakers, since Davis come back, they've won 5 in a row. So with this matchup head-to-head, it's so juicy because we know in a 1-game scenario just how deadly Steph is, and it doesn't matter how many good players you got on your team. If he's willing to put all those shots up, put up 22 3-pointers, if he's going to do that again, then he could just hit a couple and really start to make it a bit nervy for the Lakers. But for me, it's just way too big a mismatch. Like the Lakers could be a 1 seed. That's how good their lineup is. They've got Schroeder back in the lineup. They've got LeBron. They've got Anthony Davis. And then who's the number 2 man for Golden State? It's Wiggins. So unless Wiggins plays like an all-star that, I guess people were hoping and thought he might have been when he was taken with the number 1 pick. But, Cleveland and the front office and LeBron James himself did not think that Andrew Wiggins was a superstar, and that's why they traded him for Kevin Love. So he's the only way, I think. Wiggins, if he has a huge game, it's the only way that the Warriors can beat the Lakers for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry to give a boring answer and agree with Das, but yeah, it's the Lakers. I'm not going to be dumb here. I know I've been dumb in the past and drunk too much of the Golden State Kool-Aid, but you've got to look at it here. The Lakers are fully healthy. Their key advantage obviously be rebounds, and obviously the big men having a Drummond Davis front line. That's way too much.
Such a good defense.
That's
their overall defense. They've got guards to chase Curry all game long. They're going to double team him. Like all these other Golden State guys, they're all going to be wide open. And it's going to be like, go ahead, beat us Jordan Poole, beat us Wiggins, shoot some threes, Draymond, Mulder, shoot some threes, Bazemore, have as many as you want. Like this is the playoffs, like Lakers are fine with those guys shooting the ball.
Yeah, exactly. So if they don't have the, inside dominance, offense won't be an issue. They'll get great looks. And on top of that, they'll have so many second chance opportunities with just having those big men. So I think Drummond and Davis should feast on the boards. That's for sure. But yeah, the only caveat, and I know I don't like saying this because I don't believe it'll happen, but you mentioned Wiggins there needing to absolutely go off. Well, he's been
good lately.
We did see. Did you see how well he played against Phoenix? So he had 38 points. Phoenix were pushing hard in that game as well. If anyone watched it, Phoenix, it wasn't a mailing game. One seed was still up for grabs in the West. Phoenix were really pushing. And Steph had a bad game. Steph, I think, had
Chris
20.
Paul and Wiggins.
Yeah, exactly. So Steph had 22 or something, shot really bad from the field, less than 50%, and couldn't get anything going. And it was, as Dal says, a battle of Chris Paul versus Andrew Wiggins. And Wiggins won the battle. He was phenomenal, 38 points. And, he shot the ball at a high clip, and it was super efficient. And it was just like, whoa, if we got this even 1 in every 5 games, 1 in every 10 games from Wiggins, we would look at him so differently. But, more often than not, he'll disappear and be in the shadows. So if we can get that more consistently, then it could be a threat. And again, look, it's not a one-off type scenario that we've been speaking about with a few of these other games, because the loser gets a second chance. But I almost think that the team that is 8th has a better situation. I don't know about you, but if you're the Lakers and the Golden State, just in terms of matchup perspective, if you think, no matter what happens, I'm definitely going to be in the playoffs. So, you beat whoever wins the 9-10 game. Would you rather face Utah or Phoenix? So would you rather the 7 or 8 seed is basically what I'm saying.
That's a good question. Like, looking forward, I think it's interesting, when you think, were the Lakers actually happy to become 7th? Because now they end up, playing against a Phoenix team that actually is probably the best matchup for them. When you talk about the Jazz, Nuggets, Suns, Clippers, I think when it comes to the Lakers and their strength on the interior and their force with James and Davis, I think that's probably the only team that Phoenix looked very vulnerable against. And, people can look at the game that only happened a week ago where, Davis was there, LeBron wasn't, and Davis tore Phoenix basically to shreds. He had a huge 40-point game in Staples Center, and they took care of Phoenix quite easily. But I just think it puts a lot of pressure on DeAndre Ayton, not just to be a rim runner and a screen setter and a rebounder. Like, he's going to have to defend 2 of the best players in the league. And, Drummond's going to be in there banging against him as well. Like, Phoenix, the big question mark with them is with their front line. So it's interesting, because I'm not sure how much you can read into it. Are the Lakers really that calculated that they went for the 7th seed just to get Phoenix instead of potentially running into Utah or the Clippers? So I think, the matchup does work out better. They definitely would rather play Phoenix if I'm LA. If you're Golden State, I think you potentially want to see Utah maybe.
I agree.
I think we both think that the Lakers will get this win done, and they'll be in a nice spot if they play Phoenix in the first round. It could be, people will be talking about upsets before that series even starts.
Yeah, 100%. I kind of just want the Lakers to tank it and lose this game, then obviously win the next game, and then get back onto the Clippers side of the bracket, so they can still play the Clippers potentially in the second round, just for a bit of payback, just for how blatant that tanking was, just the fact they didn't want any part of that, that side of the bracket. So I agree. The reason Das and I haven't really touched too much on this Lakers Golden State game is we think it's pretty clear cut. It's really hard to go past the Lakers because they don't need everything to go right for them to win this game. They barely need a lot to go right. Their defense is so reliable, it's so solid, whereas Golden State, as Das has sort of mentioned, with the secondary players and outside of Curry and Draymond getting all these looks and all these other role players, you need a perfect night from just about every single role player. You need Toscano Anderson to be a beast and have good backup minutes, because we haven't seen Eric Pascal in ages. So when Draymond's off the court,
Looney
which I don't reckon he will be,
game of his life.
Looney needs to play out of his skin. Really just play solid defense at the rim, get every rebound in sight, and just really bang bodies with Drummond. And the thing is that you don't get this. Well, I'm not sure if Gasol will feature a lot in this game. It's not really the matchup for him, but who knows? But yeah, it just feels like the Lakers barely need anything to go right, but the Golden State need everything for them to even have a sniff at winning. So. Look, similar to what, our guest from last week on the last pod, Benji, said, it's still an exciting proposition to have a Lakers Golden State and a LeBron v Steph and all the storylines that come out of that. And look, there is potential that Steph just has a out of body experience the way he's been playing, and he drops 50 plus, and Golden State can make a game out of it. Because we talk about, I'll just say, well, the last thing we talk about the defenders that the Lakers have, but if Steph has 50, how does that still? It kind of rubs it out. If Steph gets hot, or he doesn't even really need to get hot, but if Steph can shoot a decent clip from the field, close 40, 50%, he doesn't need to shoot amazingly. But if he's at least consistent, drawing fouls, getting to the rim, he has changed up his game a lot. You see how he uses his body. When teams are playing him for the three, he always seems to find a way to cut back door or get a guy on his back for someone to pass him the ball, and he can get off a nice little floater. He had about 4 or 5 of them this morning, uses a backboard, changes up his game, and can get to the rim.
So clever.
He's a smart enough guy that, just it's a lot easier said than done to be able to stop Steph. So I think it is likely, as you say, they will double team him. But still, I mean, Steph only needs to see one go in, and he thinks he's on fire. So it's still a dangerous proposition, shouldn't be ruled out. But yeah, the Lakers side of things, LeBron's potentially motivated, and if anything, the ankle has given him some rest that he probably wasn't expecting to have, because you saw how he was motivated to play every single game. And Davis was the one who wasn't playing back-to-backs for majority of this season before he got injured. LeBron was. So the ankle injury, blessing in disguise in terms of rest for LeBron. So I think there's no chance he's going to let Golden State get past. But still, there's the 1%er, and that's Steph Curry. So that just has to be mentioned.
For sure, man. Whenever he gets hot, if he's able to hit a couple of threes in a row, then that's when his team needs to capitalize. He hits a couple of threes, that means they're going to double team. Then he's going to make the right play. He's going to make the extra pass, and those bench guys, those not so big names on the wings, need to knock down a few threes in a row, get some momentum. They've had some success, the Warriors, with the small ball lineups that they've been going to. They've been going real small, all guards, all switchable wings who can shoot the three. And if they can knock them down, then they can keep the Lakers close. And yeah, if they could get into a fourth quarter where they're really, really close, then they genuinely, the Warriors might have a chance. If they can get to that fourth quarter, and it's just a matter of, can Steph do basically the impossible? And I'd love to see him even, go right to the wire, win or lose. If he can turn it down to one of the last minutes or two, that'd be absolutely phenomenal. But no, the Lakers, they're a scary, scary prospect going into the playoffs. They look healthy. It's for them to have their whole roster right now, and it's only been 1 or 2 games that they've played together, the last 2, but they're all there, and we talked about it so much in the preseason pods. They've put together a championship level team with depth, with a lot of size, and obviously 2 superstars. So yeah, very, very scary times.
We haven't even mentioned Dennis Schroeder as well. He's another option for the Lakers. So he was out the last 2 weeks with COVID, but now he's back as well. And it's good timing for the Lakers. Things seem to be clicking and heading in the right direction. I know they let go, and if they beat Portland, they probably wouldn't have even been in a play-in game, because they would have won the head-to-head. So that Portland game was crucial. Was it a week ago? So we might not have even seen this scenario if they were able to get that win.
Their side of the bracket, I spoke briefly on how they would probably be favored in a series against Phoenix. Then you end up playing the winner of Denver and Portland. And the Lakers know that they can beat both of those teams for sure. Definitely. So I would not be surprised if we do see the Lakers back in the conference finals. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
It's true.
Couple of big games coming up Wednesday and Thursday. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And I think no matter what you think about whether it's fair or not that they're doing the play-in games, everyone will have a great time watching these, and to see teams playing a knockout kind of 1-game scenario. It's like a Game 7 scenario, and it's always the best part of the playoffs, a Game 7. So I'm very interested to see what these games will turn out like.
That's a great point. I know a lot of people have said, oh, as you say, the play-in, it's really, not the best thing for the game, and they should have just kept it the way it was. And well, how to stop them from continuing to do the play-in moving forward. Don't watch the games. But people are going to watch these games.
Yeah.
They're going to tune in. They're going to ESPN, NBA. They're going to see the ratings. They're going to go, and they're going to see the money and revenue, and they're going to go, why would we not have this next year and the year after and the year after? So, that's unfortunately the reality that people are going to have to live with. I know you made a really good point before the pod. Did you want to quickly touch on that? Your thinking behind the play-in?
Oh, well, I didn't really notice this until I looked up the games yesterday on Sunday, our time, before the Monday games, last games of the season. There was a lot of movement that could potentially have happened in the standings, but those standings those positions that could have been changed were 1 through 8. If we didn't have the play-in tournament, we would have had a game, Charlotte against Washington, basically for the 8th seed, which would have been, would have been as good as anything we're going to get in Golden State and Memphis. That game was a big game, and I'm sure a few of you watched it, but that would have been the do or die playing game. Those two teams playing off for the 8th seed. That's what it would have been. So almost we had less drama on the final day of the season because of the play-in, but now we're going to get a little bit of extended drama for 2 or 3 days before the postseason. So it'd be interesting to kind of see just how intense and just how razor close these playing games are, because if there's a few blowouts, then I would make the case that potentially it would have been more interesting to see just the 1 through 8s play off for those positions on the last day of the season.
Yeah, I thought when you said this to me pre-recording this pod, I thought it was an excellent point of view, because it's something I hadn't thought about myself. Hadn't really heard too many people say, it would be more exciting if there was no play-in. All the talk was, now that there is a play-in, it's going to be more exciting. And yes, it has, given teams that potentially would have been out of the playoffs more reason to keep going. Potentially a Sacramento or a Pelicans, Chicago would have mailed it in, 2-3 weeks ago. But I guess the thought of still being able to make it, it really made them at least be competitive on a nightly basis. The other day, not to get too off track, but I mean, the Raptors gave your Mavericks a pretty good game, and they didn't have too many guys. So the fact that they're still remaining competitive and at least trying, even though they're out of it, it does make it good in that respect. But there are still always going to be tanking teams. They're trying real hard. If we'll address it as well when sort of the lead up to the lottery, and we'll do a pod to review the draft lottery as well. I think that kicks off. Gosh, it's got to be soon, and it would have to be June, maybe even sooner.
We'll have to double check that, because it almost definitely overlap with the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I'll say if Minnesota fall out and Golden State get that pick, go and take a look at the last 3 weeks of how Minnesota's been playing and the games they've been winning. It makes no sense given their team situation. So yeah, we'll probably leave things there, because games, we'll get this pod out. If you're listening to it, it'll probably be Tuesday, the 18th of May. Games will kick off with the East, Charlotte v Indiana and Washington v Boston on Wednesday. And then Thursday is the West side of things. So San Antonio, Memphis, before Golden State and the Lakers take center stage for that really intriguing game. So Darcy and I will come back and do a pod probably after the West playing games, and potentially look ahead to preview whoever won 9v10 in both the West and the East versus the loser of the 7-8. So we might review these first 4 playing games, preview the next 2, and then we'll be back to basically preview the playoffs once we then have the 1 through 8 set from both sides. Ooh. So it's really exciting. We do already know a couple of series, but with the 4-5 and the 3-6, sorry, with the 4-5 and the 3-6 already being locked in from both sides. But we just wanted to focus on the play-in today, and then we can sort of touch on everything. Is there anything else you wanted to speak about before we shut things off?
No, I don't think so. This is definitely the time, if you haven't been watching that many games this season, to go in and watch one from start to finish, because
Absolutely.
not only is there going to be a lot on the line, but you're really going to find out what some of these all-star or superstar players are made of. The difference between really good players and the all-time greats are the ones who are able to get it done on the biggest stage, and this is what we're coming up to. So these games that we talk about all the time, these games that really matter, these are the ones that matter when you might be going home and packing your bags. You might be going fishing for the rest of the summer over in America. So I'm also interested to see how tips on the season awards as they slowly come out throughout the playoff rounds, and see how we go picking some of those, because it's interesting to see there's a lot of money on the line for some players on in getting those awards as well. So something to keep an eye out for, and keep an eye out for maybe some daily locks. We're going to make sure that we get those pumping through the playoffs.
That'll be.
Can we reset? Can we reset the records and then try to go 500 in the playoffs? Maybe we can.
Yeah, I reckon we can. We can easily do that. Because it's a new season.
Regular season.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes, it is, Das. It's a new season.
Back at 500.
It's a new season. So we're both 0-0, which we've come off a really big regular season. We've made it to the playoffs. We've done enough.
We made the play-in.
We made the play-in. That's true. Expect our daily locks to be back, and we'll try and bring some winners in. The one thing I will mention, no, I won't, because I've forgotten what I was going to mention. So don't worry about that.
I'm definitely going to have a bracket challenge. Once the bracket is set for 1 through 8, I'm going to post on all my socials.
Yes, you do this.
Join in.
This is great.
Join in on the bracket challenge. I think we had about 16 people join in last season.
Yep.
I was absolutely awful in the bubble picking it, but yeah, pick your playoff matchups from both conferences all the way down to the finals, picking the scores in each round for a total score. It should be really interesting. Get involved, and we want to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, 100%. That's always a good bit of fun. Really an opportunity to, back up all this talk that you're a great tipster and you watch a lot of ball and you know the NBA well. Well, let's put it to the test. Let's really see how you go.
All challenges.
So
we welcome everyone.
Yeah, good call. Look out for that with Das posting that across his socials, because that's always a good bit of fun. There's no money, is there? Should we do a money thing or no? Or is that a bit of
maybe
just to potentially, get some
prides on the line?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, other than just bragging rights.
maybe I'll chuck a little tenner or a little $20 in. Why not?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Well, that is where we'll leave things. We hope you guys, enjoy these playing games like Darcy and I will. We'll be glued to it. We'll be back to review Thursday night. So expect hopefully a pod by Thursday night. If we can potentially try and look to record one, maybe Thursday Arvo or early Thursday evening, can get it out before, because I think the winner of 9v10 in the East will play the loser of 7v8 on the Friday morning. So it's basically no days off, except potentially a couple days break after, all the playing stuff is done. So still a lot of NBA over the next 4 days to be locked into. And as always, we'll speak to you guys very soon, and go Philly.
Go the Mavs. Playoff time, baby. There we go.
We'll break down the Mavs. We'll break down Philly when we do our playoff preview. But obviously both Das and I are bullish on our respective teams. I love that Philly don't have Miami, Brooklyn, or Milwaukee on our side of the bracket. That is a gift from God. So we'll break all of that down. But we guys hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. And we'll be back and speak to you guys very soon. Take it easy, guys.
All right, guys. See you later.